Welcome to another episode of Junior Achievement of South Florida's Recipe for Success. Just as there are no two recipes that contain the exact same ingredients or measurements, there are no two success stories exactly the same. Recipe for Success features entrepreneurs, visionary leaders, and innovators of all ages who will share the ingredients that make them successful. Here's your host, Lori Salarulo, President and CEO of Junior Achievement of South Florida.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Recipe for Success, brought to you by Junior Achievement of South Florida. I'm Lori Salarulo, the host of our show. And if you've been watching any of our episodes, you know that we take such great pride in bringing you leaders and entrepreneurs who share their stories and share the ingredients to their recipe for success. Most of you know that is our mission. Our mission is to create future entrepreneurs, leaders, managers, create careers, successful careers for young people. And so this is one way that we can share these stories, not only with you, but with our students. And so I'm really happy to have a guest with us this morning who I just love what he does. And in today's world, so relevant, but he was definitely way ahead of the curve, I think. Zach Morrison, who I'm also happy to say is one of our JA board members, the founder of Tinuiti, who is a digital agency. And so I am going to bring Zach into our little world. Whoop. Did I get you?
There I am.
There you are. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, all things considered.
That's true. That is true. It's good. I mean, I got to see you 2 days in a row, and I do have to say that all of these Zoom calls and team meetings and all of that, it can be a bit overwhelming because I always used to think my day was so packed with meetings, but in between, I didn't always appreciate the time that I had in the car, right? To kind of come down from that meeting and then get ready for the next meeting. And now I don't have that because it's back-to-back meetings. So I mean, it's good, it's productive, but need a little breathing space there. So
yeah, got to establish a new routine.
Exactly. So would you, for our audience, because I know that I had never heard of Tinuiti until I met you, would you share with our audience a little bit about the company? The short story of how you founded it, why you founded it, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, we like to consider ourselves one of the best kept secrets in our space, but one day we would hope to be maybe not the best kept secret and a household name, but that's going to take a little while. So Tinuiti, we are the largest independent performance marketing agency across the triopoly. And what the triopoly is Google, Facebook, and Amazon. Now, what that means even detailed is we do digital marketing and digital advertising. So we manage over $1.5 billion a year in media and advertising across those three platforms, across Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, advertisements on Amazon, and much more as well beyond that. We have over 650 employees now across 10 offices in the US, but we also have a considerable remote culture and dispersed workforce. So we actually have, of our 650 people, over 150 that are actually more than 50 miles from one of those 10 offices. And really, that's just one core tenet of the business that all relates back to the culture that we've built at the agency. And being looking at our business, we define our success by the satisfaction of our employees first and foremost, and our clients as well. So I'm happy to tell a little bit of the story about how this whole crazy venture got to where it is, if you'd like.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, so I'll kind of add some personal anecdotes to it. So I was always, I don't want to say entrepreneur because I was young. I was always a hustler, I'll call it. I always had something going on. I always had a side gig, a business, selling something, trying to make a buck as a kid, no matter what. And in 2004, I was in college, and trying to figure out what, honestly, what true business I was going to start. And I happened through a friend of a friend to meet a gentleman named Ben Kirshner, who was actually the first person to ever sell coffee on the internet. And he got really good at selling coffee on the internet through the early days of Google. And a lot of people started asking him for his advice on how to do this. So he realized, why would I give away my knowledge for free? So he learned about what an agency was, what a marketing agency was, not really having any experience in that space, and decided to start an agency. And quickly through his research, he learned about the terrible stigma that Madison Avenue had around agencies, right? Around working people to the core, not treating people very well.
Yes, I was one of them. I was one of them. I worked on Madison Avenue for Ogilvy and Mather. I know that.
Okay, so I will tell you that the thesis of our business is to do it the opposite of the world that you worked in, partially due to our research and partially due to our naiveness. So that was 2004. He saw that, kind of left that world and started his own agency, and that agency's name was Elite SEM. And in 2004, I'm still in college, so Ben was the main founder, and then him and I got introduced. I knew I wanted to be in New York, but I didn't have my entrepreneurial venture yet. And he said, look, I'm not really ready to hire people 100%, so why don't you come work for me for part of the time, and then the other part of the time you can do your own side business. I was like, so that's perfect. So actually, I like to call myself a founding member and maybe a partnerpreneur, because he was really the original visionary and the entrepreneur. But it was really myself, him, and only a few other people at this time. And it was under the name Elite SEM. And we were focused on just Google advertising, because this is 2004. Right. And really, our goal at this point was to do it the opposite of Ogilvy. Right? At Ogilvy in these places. Now, look, there's plenty of other good agencies out there, but our concept was, well, wait, businesses and executives, they don't keep clients. They don't make clients happy as an agency grow. The people do. So if that's what's wrong with other agencies, then let's start this thing the opposite. So we came up with this idea of intrapreneurship. We wanted entrepreneurs within our organization. We wanted to have a culture of ownership. So we wanted to hire people that would feel a sense of ownership over the work they did and on the clients they did. So when a client asks me about our business, I say, look, my number one most important thing, the thing I put first is our employees. And some of them will look at me in just complete shock and be like, what do you mean? Clients aren't first? You're an agency. No, our people are first. And by putting people first, it means paying them well, treating them like owners of the business, recognition, training, education, all those things. I tell clients, guess what? They're going to put you first, because everything in their world, their recognition, their pay, everything for them has to do with you. So they're going to put you first. So that was like the original thesis. So Google advertising and a great culture. Now, the world has dramatically changed since 2004 when we first started this. Other things, Facebook has come in, and social advertising. The emergence of Amazon and marketplaces, which also have an advertising. So our world has really evolved since then to adopt all of those channels. So today we work with businesses, everything from Etsy, Elf Cosmetics, Keurig, the K-Cups, Kraft Heinz, Terminex, Tommy Bahama, Eddie Bauer, and Advil, a variety of other businesses today. And helping them with their performance marketing. So, we're really proud of the clients that we work with and the brands that we have, but we're also really proud of the culture that we've built and sustained over time.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's basically entrepreneurs, right, are filling a need, and you saw a need for a different model, right, and different type of workplace, and you filled it. So this transition that everybody else is going through today to remote working, you were already there. So there was no change for you. It was business as usual.
Yeah. I mean, when we shut down our offices, people are upset, maybe more from like a social perspective, but this has not changed our business. Well, I mean, we were one of the original customers of Zoom. We actually tried 5 video conferencing platforms 5 years ago before even Zoom existed, because this has been part of our business. Now, I mentioned the business started as Elite SEM. Today, it's Tinuiti. We rebranded the agency actually a year ago, partially because we have acquired 3 other agencies. So actually, our disbursement of our workforce has even got even greater. But doing acquisitions, dealing with a global pandemic, working from home, while we're all dealing with the stress and anxiety that comes with it, it hasn't really changed our business model. We don't get to see our clients or our colleagues as often in person, but business as usual.
Yeah, I'll bet, when I came to your office, I know there was lunches out for everyone. And I think you said you bring in lunch several times. I'll bet that's the stuff they're missing, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing is I think, one of the things I would say in awe of our employees over is obviously during this time, while our business is in the right sector, we're in digital and e-commerce, we're not immune from the challenges that come from this time. And I've just been awe of our employees. Obviously, we've had to change perks, remove perks, and those types of things. Some are just not even possible. Yeah, we used to have caterers in the office. We can't cater to their houses. So, I've just been in awe of their, people's just total understanding of this and just gratefulness. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we've always been transparent with our employees and we tell them everything. We get down to the detail of telling our every employee at our company gets to see the P&L. Every employee we tell on a weekly basis, whether we're collecting money or not. They're owners in the business. They all have equity. So, they understood when we had to make those changes.
Yeah, I love that equity model. I've often thought about how to do that in our business, but it's kind of hard to do that with a nonprofit since we can take the profits. But it's creating, I love when you said about entrepreneurship, because that's exactly what I know for me at Junior Achievement has been one of the things that has been so important to me to creating that kind of culture. It's a mindset, right? I really do believe, people will say to us, oh, you're teaching all these kids entrepreneurship. Well, maybe they don't all want to become entrepreneurs. I said, I'm okay with that. But when they work for someone, they will understand what it feels like to run a company, to own it, right? And have that mindset, that versus an employee mindset, which is I go to work, I do my job, and I go home. And it's very different. And I think that's part of that culture. And I think you mentioned that you've actually won several awards for your culture.
Yeah, so I would say the one that we're probably most proud of, there's a tie. So we've won Ad Age, which is the best publication in kind of the agency world, best place to work 2 years in a row. But a year or so ago, we actually won best place to work in all of America for all types of companies for millennials from Fortune magazine, or Fortune.com. I don't know why I said magazine, but Fortune, their brand. There you go. And that was amazing because look, 95% of our probably employees are probably considered a millennial, and the vast majority of our industry was. And when we really look back at that, I think when I try to understand why we did it, I think it has to do with the transparency I talked about, but it has to do with, we use this word a lot internally, meritocracy, right? And about merit. And it's not, and I think where businesses have struggled is that they look at just pay and these, things as the way, but people want to be treated and compensated and recognized based off of their value that they put in, not about how long they've been there or how tenured there are, right? I mean, how many stories have we heard of entrepreneurs that left these big Fortune, huge companies because they weren't being valued and their ideas weren't being valued, and then they go on to start these incredible businesses. By the way, the guy at Zoom, the founder of Zoom, is one of those people. He had worked at a big tech company that could have just listened to his ideas, but instead he left to start Zoom. Why? Because he wasn't recognized or compensated based off his merit and his ideas. So that's one of the things that we've always done, is the value that you put in is always the value that you're going to get out.
Yeah, it's funny. I did an interview for a couple of young students yesterday, and they asked me what was one thing that was important to me, and I was talking about inclusion, right, and empowerment, including our people in decisions. And sometimes their wishes, right, or what they think might be best isn't always what we end up doing, but very often it is, right, because we all agree that that's the best idea. But I think that It has changed the culture to make sure that they're included in the conversations, that they're aware of what we're discussing, where we're going, and all of that. And it has absolutely shifted the culture. And then once we all agree, right, they now have buy-in. So once we all agree, then they can go and you can empower them to do what they need to do to get you there if you have the right people, right?
Exactly.
And you're right. Seniority and tenure doesn't always make, it can be that brand new employee who's there a year, who is the one who has all those great ideas. So all of that. So I guess, it's really interesting. I think about, as we're going through this, I'm sure that, or I would think that you have seen an influx of people shopping online. And so I know you mentioned something the other day about the highest days for shopping recently. And so where do you see this going, Zach?
So I think history is a great predictor of the future. And the last crisis, deep crises that this country's been in was in 2007 to 2009 period of the financial crisis, and then previous to that, the period of 9/11. So I look back to the more recent one of the financial crisis, and I think my takeaway from that is what was overvalued was exposed, and what was undervalued accelerated. So in that financial crisis, home prices were overvalued, but also what was overvalued was the cost of advertising on linear television or print or out of home or all these things. It's not that I think those things are bad. I actually still to this day, believe that they're an important part of a marketing or media mix, but they were way overvalued then. And at that point is when digital and e-commerce kind of really took off. Well, now let's fast forward to today. So, and I think what you're seeing now is a cohort of people that didn't trust the shop online, didn't believe it, it wasn't part of their day, that it's going to explode even more. We have a lot of clients that are the brands and 75% of their sales still occur in a store and 25% maybe occur online. Now, I think what's going to happen is that shift is going to occur. Maybe, I don't know, let's say it's going to occur to 50-50. But what I'm talking to our clients about is don't change your business after this to prepare for 50-50. You need to prepare for the complete inverse. That people are going to come out of this, and hopefully we get to back to somewhat of a normal or a new normal. But we all know that for a very long time, things are going to change. And we also know that people got to experience what it's like in a vast way to not be able to go anywhere and shop. So it's my feeling is retail and, physical stores were overvalued. They really weren't 75% of the business. People were going online and then just going into the store and buying a lot more often than people say. So I think you're going to see a huge shift in that, post this era.
Yeah, when I was talking with Andrew Koenig with City Furniture, he kind of said something very similar. People still want to go into the store sometimes, like a mattress or whatever, and experience it or see it or touch it, but they've already done all their homework online before they ever got there.
Right. It goes back to he's making the same statement. It's about their businesses and humans are overvaluing the store or the physical location and undervaluing. Remember, I'm not saying zero at all. But for the store, I'm just saying overvalued versus undervalued. And I think you're going to see a flip. You're already seeing it even before this, where malls and, other places were turning into more experience centers because people, if the businesses aren't going to make money if you're just going there to just get something, because people already did all their research and that shift's going to continue online. So, I think stores are going to need to be more about an experience than it is going to be about shopping in the future, because the shopping and the research is going to be done online. Sure. Yeah. And that's why I think Toys R Us, it would have an amazing opportunity if they turn themselves into an experience center. They're gone. They're trying to make a comeback.
They're gone.
But if kids could go in and it could have been an experience, the kids already know online what toys they want. Yeah, they can go learn, but if they knew it was an experience and parents knew it was an experience, they would go there more often and buy more stuff, and that's why they failed.
You said that I come from New York. FAO Schwartz, right?
Yeah,
was a toy store, and it was an experience, right? The big gumball machine coming down in the middle, and the big piano steps that you could play on, and so it was. I definitely hear you. And even back then, they got it right where Toys R Us.
But then, and they didn't evolve enough, and they had the idea, but you got to keep taking it. I mean, you see things out there, this museum of ice cream and all this other stuff. They're turning those things are stores, because what do you do at the end of Disney World or any place you go? At the end, you get off a ride, you get out of an experience. What's there? A store to buy something. So it's the inverse is where these brands need to go.
Yeah, I agree. So, it's interesting because I think, and I don't know if it's my imagination, but it feels like over the last 6 weeks, social media, and I try to be thoroughly active on, more because of Junior Achievement. I don't post a lot of personal stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and that's about all I can handle. But it feels like those platforms are so overloaded right now. Like there's so much content, and something that, I would see someone who would post great stuff and they would have, thousands of views, right, on a post that they would do. And now you see maybe that same type of post would get maybe 200 or 300 views. And it just feels like there's so much content. Do you think, so with ads, right, Google ads, Facebook ads, and Instagram and all that, do you think will there be a point of saturation?
So they're always, so I kind of put Google in its own bucket, right, and Amazon in their own, because that's intent based, right, where people are going in and they're asking for something, you're searching something. So for them, no, not necessarily. Now, for your question around social, there already has been saturation, and that's why Instagram stories became a thing, right? I mean, yes, they copied it from Snapchat, but the reason they did was they needed a new form of a way that people consume, and not just consume in Facebook in the feed. Then it went to Instagram, then into stories. Now you're seeing Instagram TV. So I think, like every great company, these social platforms will continue to innovate in order to make, one, their advertising native, that people just kind of expect it and they're okay with it. And two, they'll do a great job of, coming up with new platforms, new mediums to serve ads that will be less saturated. But also three, the ones that don't, look, Snapchat, TikTok, these type, there'll always be disruptors and innovators. I mean, look, Snapchat is probably one of the most innovative companies out there. And it's not mass mainstream right now. The problem with some of their innovation is that they haven't built a moat around it. That some of the innovation that they built is been very easy for the Instagrams of the world to copy. But hey, that's a company I bet on, because anybody who's innovating, they'll eventually get their moat right. Yeah,
that makes sense. So the one question that we did get your recipe, by the way, for the cookbook. And so by the way, I'm loving it because I'm trying some of the recipes that some of our guests are giving us. Kim Swears gave me an amazing recipe for short ribs the other day. So I pulled out my slow cooker and I'm making short ribs this week. But I think the one thing I always ask everyone at the end is, what is your main ingredient in your recipe for success? Hold on, honey. My producer always has to make an appearance. So I promise to that in 1 second, buddy. So what is the main ingredient to your recipe?
So, man, I've been sitting on this question since you invited me to be on the show and trying to figure out how I'm going to answer it, because I get a question in this way, shape, or form a lot, because I was fairly young when, kind of we got started, and still believe I am a little young. There's this concept of nature and nurture that, I think everybody thinks about. So nature being one of the things that, could be part of your ingredient. So I can never answer a question exactly the way you asked it. So I look at my ingredients in
When
two parts.
I ask people, sometimes I get 3.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to do that. So, all right. So I look at my ingredient has 2 parts, right? You got the wet and dry ingredients, or, in baking, whatever you want to call it. So here are my 2. I think you have nature and you have nurture. I think some people like to say that, are you nature or nurture? Do you think your success is because of something inherent inside you or because other things help? I think it's nonsense. Every successful person is both. So my main ingredients, I would say, is both nature and nurture, just like everybody is. And I would say from the nature, perspective, I just have always believed to have kind of a work ethic and a self-awareness that I think was kind of instilled in me from my parents, both who worked hard, both who understood their strengths really well and focused on that. And then look, from the nurture side, I just had amazing mentors and coaches, and not one. I mentioned Ben, but Ben's not the only one. There's a gentleman named Cameron Harold, Matt Cutler. There's friends, colleagues. I have so many mentors. So I appreciate you letting me give 2 answers, that it's nature and nurture. But I would say if I had to give one overarching one, I actually thought about it. It's the ingredient is a chip on my shoulder. I've always had a chip on my shoulder. I was never an A student. I never really, frankly, believed much in how the education system works. It's part of the reason why I love junior achievement so much, is because I walked in, I'm like, oh, this is real life. I wrote my capstone paper in college on how college doesn't prepare you for the real world. And the teacher only passed me because she never wanted to see me again. But it was because so this chip on my shoulder that, I knew that it did, that grades and honors classes and SAT scores was going to have no bearing on my professional success and my success in life. It was going to be about me as a person and my work ethic. So yeah, I've always just carried that chip on my shoulder that the college counselor that worked at my school, who, told me every college was a stretch and kind of, never really, believed in me or any of those things. And now, I kind of like to make sure I get information fed back to that woman of my success. So it's always been that chip on my shoulder.
Payback, so you know what. But
yeah,
you know what? I think that's why I think I admired you from the time I met you, because that was me. I mean, it was like, don't make me sit in these classrooms and listen to someone talk to me up there who's either never done it, right? Or it's just talking to me and I'm not getting to experience it. And so I left college with 18 credits to finish. My dad was a dean of students of a college in New York. My mom was the superintendent of schools. So this didn't go over really big, but and I had always worked 3-4 jobs at a time and went to school. And I loved working, because that's where I got to develop my skills and really learn, like you said, from other people. Not that there isn't some value to classroom, but I think the way it's formatted, I agree with you. And that's why I love junior achievement, because I do think that for those students who are not going to go off to be a doctor or a lawyer, right, they're more like us, and they need to experience it. And I ended up going back and finishing my 18 credits to make my dad happy more so. And also because I knew if I left Ogilvy, I would need to have that piece of paper. Even though I was a vice president, I knew I'd have to have that if I wanted to leave. So it was
I have a very similar story. Very similar story. But it was a little, different era. So I actually planned to not finish, and because we started this when I was going into my senior year in college. I said, hey, I'm not going to go back. But technology, not as good as it is now. There was still cell phones at this time, and there were still laptops that I was able to, fulfill my commitment to my parents and to college, and begin my agency career. So very similar paths.
Story, just a different time, right? Yep. And it's interesting. I think one of the things that I'm watching with our kids right now that are having to finish out school virtually, right? There are school systems, there are private schools who are prepared and are doing virtual teaching. So they're using Zoom and they're using team meetings and they're using technology to bring the teaching alive. And so there's interaction, right, between the teacher and the student, between all of the students. There's still that bit of social piece because they can see each other, they can talk to each other. Here in Broward, we have not gotten there yet. It is static learning. And I can tell you that if that were me and I were that age, this would be bad because I would not do well with static learning. It's that interaction.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, look, my son's school has Zoom. Now, granted, he's 6, but my son is very much like me and thrives in a social environment. And that's when he does his best, kind of best thinking and best work. So even on Zoom, like, yeah, it's better than nothing, but like, and he gets some interaction. But so I think it's great that there's technology for this, but I also, the part of school that I think is the most beneficial is the social part and being around others and different types of people and learning from them. So hopefully we can get them all back to school soon.
Classroom alive, right? Bringing the classroom alive to make it feel more like the real world. And you're right. And so bringing people like you into the classrooms through Junior Achievement, I applaud the school district for that mandate and seeing that it was something that an agency outside of themselves could bring so that they could focus on the academic piece. So it's a great partnership. And I know that they're working on Zoom and those things, especially now that the kids are not going to be going back. But this was so amazing. I love your world because that's what I, spent a lot of my corporate days in. And so I love all of this. I love our innovation and our talks about how to use this world as a nonprofit, because I do think there are opportunities. So I just want to say thank you for being a part of Junior Achievement. Thank you for sharing your story and such great information about this. And I think these are not, working with somebody like you today. I'm not sure where they're going to go and how they're going to evolve. So I would encourage them to reach out to you. And thanks for sharing your ingredients. And I love the chip on the shoulder. Nobody else has said that one. So thank you. And I know I'll be talking to you in the next couple of weeks. And just take care of yourself and your family.
You too. Appreciate you having me. Appreciate the kind words as well. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.